The world of music is changing, and it's for the better. Okay, welcome everyone to another Value for Value episode. My name is Kyrin, host of the Mere Mortals podcast, but also this one where I dive deeper into the Value for Value model. I look at how this model is going to help digital content creators in a way which will allow you to get paid and also connect deeper with your audience. Just a reiteration that I do this live on a Wednesday or on the border point of a Tuesday, Wednesday, so midnight UTC 0, so just plus or minus wherever you are in the world from that onto there. And I would love to have you join me in for one of these live ones. Now, I just want to start this off with just saying V4V music. It's going to change the world. So the topic for today is V4V music. Musicians are finally getting paid. And this is going to be a two-parter. So the first portion of this is going to be really looking at the general concept. What is V4V music? Why is it important? And then in the next episode next week, we'll get into the weeds and some real resources for those who want to really participate in this and try out what this stuff is. So let's go into the top level. What is V4V music? And basically, it's a way for musicians to distribute their work using RSS. And we have already talked about in previous episodes why this is powerful, why you would want RSS in your feed. So this was episode number 41, what is a podcast? I was really talking about it there. And then also even in the one before that, episode 40, which was about how RSS can make your feed decentralized, be self-sovereign, permissionless, and allow some value transfer going on as well. So we already talked about that. And let's just start off with, I guess, like what's one of the main problems that's currently going on with music. Now, all of this I'm kind of using from secondhand sources because I am not a musician myself, so I haven't fully got to experience these, but it seems to be rather unanimous with most of the musicians that I've talked with. And it seems to be that the system of distribution is kind of, I hesitate to use the word unfair, but it's very close to that. It does very much seem to be an insider game, or it's only suited to particular people. Only certain people can kind of win in this industry, much like with the radio or the TV industry. You had to have a certain level of knowing of people, of playing the game somewhat to speak. And then something like podcasting came around, which was like, oh, cool, I can just do this from my own home. I don't have to go into a radio station. I don't have to appease these bosses. I can just produce exactly what I want, and the methods, the tools of distribution allow me to do this at such a niche individual level. And so what we can see now is that there is this kind of barrier point for musicians, which is, well, maybe they can create their own music, but okay, what do they do with it then? How do they get that out to people? And the distribution from this seems to be, you need to put it out on everywhere. And so there is a ridiculous number of streaming platforms to be able to do this. And probably the ones that you will be most aware of would be things like SoundCloud, would be Spotify. I would even put YouTube in there as a way of distributing music as well. They certainly have the YouTube Music app as well. So there's a variety of larger ways, but as we'll go on to a little bit later with Ainsley Costello, she has a post where she was talking about how she is up on a ridiculous number of apps, of streaming platforms, and I think she said there was 60 plus that she is on, which was even news to me because I didn't know that there was that many. So basically, you can put all your stuff out there, but you have to be very active in doing this. If you put a new song, you have to put it up on a ridiculous number of places to try and get it out onto all of these, different various things. So not super, super helpful in that regard. And this is in comparison to something like podcasting, where I only have to put my audio file up in one place, and then I can link to all of these places to that audio file. And then it's like, okay, check out here. Whereas I don't have to manually go and do that. I can just put it all in place. This is kind of like we were talking about with RSS. just one place and one source of truth of one thing that I own, and everything can point there. And I just found it on 60 plus streaming services. So that's an insane amount that that she is on. So I guess what is the main difference between this and maybe something like, so that's a problem. Distribution is obviously one problem that's in the music industry at the moment. Another one is that there is I guess, lack of being able to be in the money yourself. So if we think of something like Napster or MySpace, you could say, okay, well, musicians kind of had a place to put their music and a lot of people could link to it. Once again, it's not as good as RSS, I personally believe, but that you could have that. But once again, how do you get paid from that now? How do you make money from this? And the current royalty range, from what I have gathered from the outside, it seems to be somewhere in like the 10 to 30% range. If you're a musician and people are playing your music, you're only getting 10 to 30% of what's actually what could potentially be coming in, which once again seems kind of insane to me that it's so low. If you're the ones who put all of this together, that you only get such a small portion of this, and which will then get divided up even further if you're in a band and now you have to split that 10%, 5-6 different ways, or that 30% 5-6 different ways. So the current royalty scheme seems to be rather unfair. And let's just take something like Spotify, which is, this is one I'm reasonably confident I know how it works. Spotify does it like this. So they earn money from users paying a premium thing. So this will be $9 a month, and then there's another tier or two above that. And what they do is they kind of collect all this money, and then a portion of this will get distributed to the music rights associations, all of these people who they're getting and the biggest stuff from. So this is think like, the mega bands, the Taylor Swifts, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, things like that. A lot of it will go to those record companies, and then that will get distributed up, perhaps even to the artists from there, or it will just go directly to them. And so the amount that you pay gets divvied up into all of these kind of different places. And what happens is the amount that's remaining left for all of the artists, it gets divvied up based on the amount of plays. And so those who have a lot of plays, they get more money. So once again, think of the very, very famous, most popular artists, they get a ridiculous amount. Now, what this means is if you are someone who is maybe minorly or moderately successful, maybe you get, 100,000 people tuning into your music a month. How much do you actually get from that? Well, I believe it's somewhere in the range of $3 to $5 per 1,000 streams. As I've looked into it, this seems to vary widely as well, because they do all these sorts of things based on the country and whatnot. And I'm going to guess that it's kind of screws around the smaller artists as well. So let's just say $2 per stream. If you compared this to something like the advertising model in podcasting, and which for me has been really equivalent to the value for value in terms of the actual amount that I receive versus how many people have boosted in and how much I get listened to, is closer to $20 per 1,000. So this is where it's really intriguing. You go, okay, well, is music worth 10 times less than podcasting, or is podcasting worth 10 times more? In terms of the actual time it takes to create music, I would probably say no. In terms of the actual output of how it makes people feel, the value that people get from it, I probably wouldn't have particularly said so. If anything, I would have said music is a much more powerful and medium. But, this is all just going to show there does seem to be something a little bit broken with the way that it's working. And I think mostly this is due to things on the layer, which is not connected to the actual content itself, but it's all of the things around it. And so what happens is, even if I have a premium Spotify thing, I'm listening to exclusively, artists that I really enjoy who are maybe not as mainstream. Almost none of my money actually goes directly to them. It goes to these other artists who are getting played a lot and downloaded a lot, but it's, my individual personal tastes are not going to where I think they should be going, or where I would want them to go, I suppose, because so much of this is behind the surface. You have no idea. And so what I would just say is, at the kind of like top level view, there's a lot of problems, but it's not at the technology layer. It's not at the distribution of, so for example, it's not that there's better sound quality on different apps. It's not that there are better playlists necessarily. It's not that there's better algorithms. It's kind of like the problem is at the incentives and how things are getting distributed and how things are getting divvied up. And it seems to be that the smaller artists are getting a pretty shit go of it. And the amounts or the things that should be happening, if they do have a loyal fan base, their 1,000 true fans, we've heard about this in the Kevin Kelly article. If you have your 1,000 true fans, you should be able to make a living from that. And if they're willing to pay, $10 a month, that's $10,000 a month, that's easily livable off. And it seems to be that those 1,000 true fans, there's no easy way for them to do that through music at the moment. And what I think is going to change that is value for value music. So let's talk about that. So basically, what is value for value music? Well, it's being able to have your music distributed in this manner that I was talking about, where you can just put it in one place and everything can link to that. So this is using RSS. And it's being able to monetize that, much like we were talking about previously with the boostograms and through micropayments, the exact same mechanism. You can put in a Lightning wallet, and this will then be able to be a kind of source of truth for people to say, oh, okay, if I want to contribute directly to my favorite artist, my favorite musician, this is the way where I know if I boost in or if I stream micropayments, it will go directly to them. So if you want to know more about that, check out the previous 2 episodes on micropayments and on boostograms. And so I think this is going to revolutionize the music industry, just from the simple fact of musicians are going to realize, okay, this is actually changing things, and this is actually going to make them more fair for me, and I can distribute it in a just simpler and easier manner rather than trying to put it on 60 streaming services. So I'm going to get into a little bit of the history, I suppose, of this. So because I've been following this pretty closely for the last year and a half, and because I think it is going to be probably one of the biggest use cases or things that are really will maybe go viral from the whole podcasting 2.0 ecosystem and micropayments and things like this, is this ability to do it with music. Because there's just something about music that people really, it transforms and it creates people to do things in a more emotionally charged way than perhaps a podcast like this will. So let's just go on to, I guess, who were one of the first people to do this. Specifically, I'm talking about, you're a musician, you want to put your music up on somewhere, but you go like, Spotify, it's a kind of shit deal. SoundCloud, Bandcamp, all of these places that they're not really, really helping me that much. And so there was 2 artists. One was called Sir Spencer and one was called Abel Kirby, and they're both podcasters. And they created a band called Abel and the Wolf. And basically what they did is they went through the whole process of creating an album specifically just to be able to put it up as a band, as a music specifically designed to be put up on RSS. Because one of the problems is it's not coming across super easy at the moment. It's not, the whole process takes a bit of time, and if you're tuning into this show, you should know like everything of this is running with scissors. All of this is really new, and it takes a bit of time to kind of work up into. And so if you want to know more about this, go check out episode 36 called Ablecraft of this very show, because they created a podcast which was showcasing their whole design process of how they went through this. So episode 36 of the previous season, of season 2. And so what were some of the things they did? Well, they created, a transcript which would be containing the lyrics of their song. So you can see, okay, this is showcasing something that you would maybe find in a CD of previous generations before that was a thing. Album art, which they used as episode images. So for each track that they had on their album, they would have an artist design a picture which would represent that song. And you're seeing one of those appearing up on your screen as we speak. They had splits for the artists. So once again, this was something I was talking about in the boostergrams and in the streaming of payments. You can split things up directly within your feed. So you don't need to have a contract of one person gets all the money in, and then you're relying on them to divvy it up, and you don't rely on them. So you need a third party who's trusted to be able to do that. No, in this case, it's all written there, baked in. If you want to give 20, if you got 5 bandmates and you just want to split it up evenly, 20%, 20%, 20%. If you want to include more people in on that, you can, or less people, or one person's doing more work, you can change those, and it's all beautiful. And so that's what they did. The money was being split up in these various ways, and it was for each individual track as well. So once again, it gets to this granular level. It doesn't just have to be for, oh, okay, well, this person worked really hard on this particular song. So if we're going to try and do it as a whole of all the money coming in, how should we do that? No, it's no, you can get paid directly for the work that you did. So this is really, really cool. And I'm going to be playing some of their music a little bit later on as just as a teaser for, I suppose, or showcasing of how this works. And so, yeah, that was kind of one of the first use cases where I saw a musician actually creating this and putting it up specifically just to be used in this manner. There were a couple that had done this before, but this was probably the first that I saw where they really created it in this way. Now, one of the things that's really prompted me to talk about it on this episode and in the next episode as well is something called Boostergram Ball. And so this was created by Adam Curry, who you should know be well aware of by now. He is the kind of co-inventor of podcasting, a former MTV VJ, and the guy who's kind of spearheading, along with Dave Jones, the podcasting 2.0 movement of trying to make podcasting better. And once again, check out the episode I did, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, called Emergence of Podcasting 2.0. And so Boostergram Ball is basically where he highlights songs that he really enjoys, which have been put up in this manner. So it has been, an artist has gone, yep, I'm going to put it up in an RSS feed. I'm going to put in a Lightning address, which will showcase will show where people can send the money to. And so what he is doing is now he's created basically a DJ, a radio program where he is the DJ, and he introduces this is Boostergram Ball. He's got all of these jingles and things. Then he plays some music, leads up into it, and he's a professional. He's done this professionally as a career for many, many a year before becoming a full-time podcaster. So he really knows how to create a good show. He'll lead into the music will play, and as the music is playing through some just really, really cool technology, I guess, the money goes directly. So if people are streaming in, the money goes directly to the artist then, or if they're boosting in, it goes directly to the artist. Then when he comes back on, it'll go to him. Then when he talks a little bit and then he plays the next song, it'll go to that next artist. And so basically he's created 3 shows at this very moment, each of these being roughly about an hour long, and he's playing about 10-ish shows per episode. So we can see, okay, this is really cool because it solves a couple of things. The discoverability component, if he's playing a show on there, this is how radio has always worked. If you hear a really cool song on the radio, it's like, oh man, I want to listen to more of that. I'm going to go out and buy their CD, or I'm going to listen or stream in more. And I think this is where the madness is going to kick off, because I can really see this just expanding as musicians realize, oh wow, I'm actually getting paid for people listening to my music, because there's people out there like me who have a very much kind of disposition towards, yes, if I'm listening to something, I want to pay for it. And so would I rather spend $9 a month on Spotify, or would I rather spend $9 a month streaming directly to people who I think they deserve it? I'm going to do it my way. and I'm going to stream into music that I listen to, and I'm going to stream in or boost into shows like Adam's, which showcase music and is kind of a way for me to discover it. So very, very, very cool on that point. And the thing is, this is all, I would say kind of revolutionary, as I was referring to at the start, because he's tried this once before and he never got it off the ground because it was just too hard with the record labels, with the rights associations, all looking at podcasting, and it's like, no, you can't do that because we can't see where this money goes. You get this money, you have to send it to us, and it was just too much of a hassle. There was just too many barrier points with I suppose the money side of things. And I think that gets solved by the direct peer-to-peer nature of, one, it being peer-to-peer, so there's no middlemen involved, there's no trust needed. And two, with the functionality of being able to split things up in various ways, there's going to be less hassle of, oh, you didn't send me this amount, you got more than me, this sort of thing. It's like, no, it's all there, it's all laid out. And if you have a problem with that, you should have brought that up as we were typing in, or who's going to get what amount of split. So I think this will change things a lot with that. Before I go on to some of the fundamental points why I think this is really going to work, I just want to give a shout out to Ainsley and a couple of stats that we've just seen across these various different shows. So I've got a tweet from her here. Once again, this will be appearing up on your screen as we speak. And so Ainsley Costello, she's a young musician in the United States. I'm not exactly sure where she's from. I think probably the Nashville area, or she lives in the Nashville area at the moment. And so she was just posting on July 25th. So she had posted up her music on Wavelake, and it kind of, one of her songs called Cherry on Top, really, it got people to like, oh wow, this is a great song. I want to play more of it. And so she said for 5 days on that, she got 180,372 sats, which was equal to about $52. And for the whole of April 2023, on 60 plus streaming services, she got $22. So we can even see just from that little example there, okay, she got double roughly in these lightning payments from people directly streaming to her and boosting to her. She got a lot more. Now, the funny thing is, this was 3 weeks ago. It's basically 10x'd that amount. So I know she's past the 1 million sats range. And I'm certainly sure that that other number of the 60 plus streaming services hasn't 10x. So just for her, she had a hit song, and people loved it, and they boosted in and they streamed in, and it was a ridiculous amount more than she would have got just from being on all of these other platforms where they do take their cut and where it isn't distributed evenly and fairly based on people and how much they enjoy that music. And so once again, this is just getting to the point where I think like V4V music, someone like her, where she has something like that happen, she's gonna tell her friends about it. Like she's gonna be like, wow, this is something completely different compared to the grinding away that I've been doing on all of these other platforms. So that was just one little use case there. And then I want to go on to some stats that Adam Curry himself published, which was just what was happening from the Boostergram ball. And so he says, here's what Podcasting 2.0 has done for value music on just 3 episodes of Boostergram Ball, over 4 million sats sent to the artists. And then he's got a breakdown here of how this has been done by apps. And we can see that it was through Boost CLI, Castomatic, Curiocaster, Fountain, Podcast Index, Podfriend, Podverse, and the Split Kit. So this has all gone directly to artists, which is equal to close to $1,200. So that's a fair bit in Australian dollars as well. It'd be like 1,600, 1,700, something like that. So we can see, okay, there's a use case for this. And it's not just middling money. That was what, 30, roughly 30 tracks being distributed. What's that, 1,200? So that's like, $40 a song. Imagine if you had your song get played once on the radio and you got $40 for it. Like that would be pretty damn good. And there's more complexities coming up with all of these things, and I will definitely be talking about that in the next episode, because there is quite a few complex things. But I think this is all just showcasing that, value for value music, there is a need for it, a want for it, and a drive for it, and people are willing to pay for it. And I think artists are going to be the beneficiary of this, because they have been some of the ones who've been screwed out of. I think just I'll say it's in an unfair system, and so I think this is a more fair one for sure. Before I get into my final fundamental points, why I think this is really going to change and how this kind of relates to podcasting as well, I did just want to play the Cherry on Top song from Ainsley Costello, and this will also be an example of how we can do value for value music even on this very show, on this very episode. So I'm going to let Ainsley take it away, and I'll be right back soon.
But you had to go and tell everyone about my attention that you hadn't won. But I bet you're wondering why a cute little knife doesn't hurt my back like you thought it would. Well, thankfully you did the hard part for me, and I just think it's good. You put the cherry on top of the mess you made, but I'll leave it out to rot. Won't say a lot, won't give you the reaction that you want. See your cherry on top. It's cherry on top. 'Cause I know that if I did, your eyes would sneak away to the corner of the room. 'Cause I know that you aren't used to having it all given back to you. And though it might be tempting to see your face redden and cry like a little boy, you might deserve it, but it don't serve a purpose. And though I'm 5'2", I'm still the bigger person. Cherry on top of the mess you made, but I'll leave it out to rot. Won't say a lot, won't give you the reaction that you want. See your cherry on top. Your cherry on top. Well, honey, I hope you know that I wish you well. Or maybe I don't, but you know that I never tell. 'Cause either way, you can't say you didn't handle it with grace. 'Cause at the end of the day, I'm not the one who put the cherry on top of the mess you made, but I'll leave it out to rot. Won't say a lot, won't give you the reaction that you want. You put the cherry on top of the mess you made, but I'll leave it out to rot. Won't say a lot, won't give you the reaction that you want. See the cherry on top. It's cherry on top. It's cherry on top.
All right, pumped. Thank you, Ainsley, for allowing me to play that on this show. Let's get into the fundamental points before I get onto the final Boostergram Lounge. So the value for value system works on goodwill. I think this is something that I've established kind of right from the start. It's goodwill on my part to put this up on for free. This episode, everything that I do, you never have to pay for it. I'm always going to be the one giving you the value straight up, and that's always how it's going to work. And I think we can take this further, where it's like, I'm now relying on your goodwill, your conscience, to say, did I enjoy this value for value show? Did I enjoy this value for value music? I ask that you just send it back into me, and I hope that you do that. Now, I think this is going to require some fundamental changes in maybe the way people view things. So artists, for example, they're going to have to give up complete control over their music. When they put it up on some of these services on RSS, you're kind of just releasing it out to the wild. It's now like, if people want to play it on a radio show, they're going to do that. If they want to remix it, they're going to do this. It is kind of just like a little bit of loosening of the reins, of no control, of just like, here, have at it. Now, I think a lot of people are keen for this and will do this anyway because, they're unknown, they're undiscovered, and when you're like that, you just want anyone to play it or hear it in any manner whatsoever. So there is a kind of goodwill on their part where it's like, okay, I'm just going to put this up and see what happens. There is somewhat of an expectation that if you're a podcaster and you're creating a DJ radio show like this, like Adam Curry was doing with Boostergram Ball, that you put in the correct split, or you at least put in a split of some sort, so that the artist, you're not just taking their music and just playing it. There is an expectation. It's not, I don't think it'll ever be enforced maybe. We'll talk more about that in the complexities later on in the next episode. But there is at the very least an expectation that will happen. There's an expectation that the listeners will give back and that they will do that. Now, not everyone is going to do this, of course. Not every podcaster is going to put in a split for the music that they're playing, but for the most part, you would expect this. I think everyone is included as well. This is another fundamental point where just through the nature of how you can send money in this way using the Lightning Network with Bitcoin and potentially with others in the future. It doesn't particularly have to be this, but at the very moment it is. Everyone can get included. So the bandmates, they can be put in the split. If you have someone who, the studio which you recorded at, they can be put in the split. You can have the people who are financing you whilst you're in a retreat and creating an album. They can be put in the split. App developers can get a percentage for giving a great experience. So I think it bypasses a lot of entrenched middlemen that you'd already see in the music industry, and it's incentivizing everyone to do the right thing. Like, everyone gets a piece of the pie by creating something better. And I think what we're going to see is we're going to see music apps, so something that will look like a music app and will be only just for music. I think these things will start to pop up in the future, and we're already kind of starting to see some, but none that are really, really distinct as of yet. Because as I just mentioned, most of the ways that people are doing it at the moment is via a podcasting app, and that's just not the best experience for playing music in. It would be better to have a music app, much like you have YouTube Music or Spotify or any of the other ones, which are more suited directly for the music experience, because it does matter, the experience. So I think this is all going to change because everyone can get a cut, can get a split. And then finally, even just going back to the second episode of this season, which was talking about the 4 different properties, I think this satisfies all of them. So one, it's decentralized. You can put up your music in one place, but anyone can access that from anywhere. So this is using the RSS feed. So if I just put up my music in this one place, I don't have to now go and put it up in a ridiculous number of places. And on the self-sovereignty aspect, I can own my own music, and this is pretty important. You need to be able to own your own music to be able to put it up and do it like this. So that it satisfies that. Permissionless, I don't have to ask Spotify to put my music up if it contains naughty words, if it contains this, if it deals with themes which are perhaps taboo. Once again, you don't have to beg anyone to be able to put your music up, or for them to play, or for even just outside influencers to come in and say, your style, I think it'd be better if you started singing about things which are more suited to a demographic, a couple years, a decade younger than you, and all these sorts of things. I think I think you can bypass a lot of that if you want to be a more pure creative and put it up in a place just where it is. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to bend to the music industry's whims and wills and kind of sell your soul. And then finally, the value transfer, of course, is when you're doing it through RSS, you're doing it through this established way. I think it is going to make a big difference on that aspect. So yeah, there we go. V4V music. I hope I have done a reasonable job of explaining what it is and why it's important, why I think it's rather revolutionary. So let's get into the Boostergram Lounge for this week, and then we'll have a couple of more tips and things like that. So let's take it away, Adam Curry.
Welcome to the Value for Value Boostergram Lounge.
Alrighty, the Boostergram Lounge. Here we go. So pro tip number 1, it's important to check your live boostergrams. If you checked in last week, you'll see that I missed a couple that were there. So apologies for who was that, Robert, Sasuke, and Chad F for only doing that at the end. This week, I am reasonably sure that there's no live ones come in. So thank you for those two, though. So we did get 3 boosts from this last week. So I'm just going to read these out I'm going to try it in the lowest to the highest. So we've got Cole McCormick here coming in. I feel like I caught a wave with V4V this week. Thanks for the shout out, bro. New World Order. So I was going to talk about him, but I might have actually missed that in my notes. Yeah, sorry, I did. So Ainsley had a chat with Cole McCormick on his show America Plus. I think it was a really great interview because, one, the age levels are reasonably close. Cole's actually a pretty good interviewer. It's the first time I've heard him really doing an interview, and I think he absolutely nailed it. He knows a lot about value for value. He knows a lot about the creative aspect because he himself is kind of more of like a filmmaker, artist, that type of thing. And yeah, I just think that was a great interview. So if you want to know more about Ainsley Costello and just the experience she had with V4V music, I would recommend checking out his show and that. So you did indeed catch a wave, and it's awesome to see that. So that was 5,492 sent using Fountain. That is his favorite number. Thank you, Cole. Got another one here from McIntosh. Boost. One quick note. I sort my boost out by episode when I get boost from more than one episode. I don't think you mentioned that as a presentation. I do like Cole's idea of smallest to largest. Build the tension. Macintosh. So thank you very much, Macintosh, and he had a little emoji in there as well. And that was 10,309 sats sent using Fountain. Yeah, this is probably going to be, I'm really interested to see how this will be in the future, because at the moment, from all the shows that I've seen, it very much does seem that people are boosting in for the latest, by and large. I'm really keen to see, say Joe Rogan got onto podcasting 2.0. Would there be people boosting in old shows, old ones? And what I have noticed is when I was doing this with Podcasting 2.0 and I was catching up and I was boosting old episodes, they themselves didn't really get it as much because I was boosting something from months ago that you were talking about months ago. So it does make it kind of harder like that. So I think it is going to be very much based around the latest episodes, and that's probably just how it will work. I think that's how the value for value model particularly works. But we'll have to see, and this could perhaps even be maybe a detriment to music, which is unless you're constantly putting out new music, maybe you don't get some of the royalties because people are like, oh, I've listened to this show 500 times, this episode, this music 500 times before, I'm not going to pay for this one. I think that can be overcome, but yeah, it's something to look out for sure. And yeah, I will mention that in the future. Thank you. I've always just read them out kind of willy-nilly, to be honest. And then finally coming in, the podfather himself, Adam C. Curry, and he has 1999 in his Fountain handle. I'm not sure why. He says, another great episode explaining the value for value model, ! 25,000 sats and using Fountain. Ooh-wee. Thank you very much, Adam. And once again, the Boostergram Ball, I would really recommend people checking out that show. McIntosh also has one called Generation Bitcoin, if you want to know more about the Bitcoin aspect. And that Boostergram Ball, it's a really good show. It's worth checking out, even if you I have no interest in the sending of money back and forth of supporting the artist or anything. It's worth, just in terms of being a radio show itself, he's a pro. He's really, really good at it. And there's a couple more shows cropping up, and I'll maybe try and get to them in in next week's episode. So that is the Boostergram Lounge for this week. Really, really thank you everyone who sent that in. I was doing a couple of quick calculations, and I think I need to get around, I think it was probably about 500,000 sats to over the course of this year to kind of make up how much it costs to host this show. So I'd really love to try and get to that. So this is a huge boost to getting that. So thank you very much for the 3 people who did that, and everyone who was streaming in as well, because I did see some streams coming in. Let's jump into some tips, and I'm going to say from this week the tip is obviously going to be related to value for value music. A lot of it is how you present it to musicians as well. I saw a bit of chatter on the podcast index, and evangelizing is not the way to go about this. Kind of going out to people, getting in their face about it, and it's hard because you can be enthusiastic about a thing, obviously, like I am for podcasting and for value music, but it's best not to just shove it in their face. And I found that for me personally, asking about the problems and how I fix them for myself via podcasting 2.0 has been the best way to do it. And then if they are a musician themselves, putting a little cheeky right hook at the end of, oh, and by the way, there's a music version of this is probably the best way of going about it. So even though it's not particularly fun, I think focusing on the problems and then highlighting a solution of something that that works for you, I think that works a lot better than trying to dive right in and being like, have you tried this thing? Put your music up on here and this will happen. And it's awesome because of these, because it's decentralized and self-sovereign, and a lot of people just don't care about it. And a lot of people, there's just so many different steps to get into it. What is an RSS feed? What is Bitcoin? What are micropayments? What is, the problem? It's easier just to start with what I think they know is a problem and what they've experienced themselves. And honestly, that's the best way that I've found of going about this and highlighting these sorts of things. So yeah, just a little pro tip there. Evangelizing, no one really enjoys it. And yeah, even though you're enthusiastic about it, just be mindful of how you are coming across, because I certainly have been guilty in the past of testing it out for sure and telling people about things, but it doesn't always work, and sometimes it doesn't come across that great. So that is my tip for this week. App or service highlight. I've purposely stayed away from a lot of linkages to things, how you can exactly do this as a musician, as a listener. So I'll give just a broad one here, which is probably like a basic good start point is Wavelake. So WAVLAKE. So if you go to wavelake.com, I think they've got some pretty it's an easy experience for those who want to know more about the all sides of the equation, because it is useful to be able to listen to, and it's also useful to be able to sign up if you are a musician. And so basically, like if you go to their website, turn up the value for your biggest fans. We envision a new online world where creators and listeners can freely transact with one another in an open ecosystem. So relatively easy. Then it's got some talking about how it's easy publishing, universal distribution, and what it's all built on, which is Lightning payments. And very, very, very easy. If you go to the website, there's a play button right down the bottom, so you can start listening to something immediately. And if you're a musician, you can start going to the About section and learning more there. So that's probably just the easiest way at the moment for just beginning aspect. Next week, we'll get into the more complex things and kind of how a lot of this stuff works under the hood. So we've explored that, and a lot of the concepts next week I'll just be able to refer to and say, check out this episode. So that is my app and service highlight. Let's finish off with some value for value. As usual, I give 15% of each episode to particular people. in addition to the 5% that is going to some developers. So 5% goes to the podcast index / fountain. And this week I'm going to give 5% to the 3 people who I'm going to play music for. So I've already played Ainsley's song, and I'm also going to play the song Making Beans from Abel and the Wolf, and I'll give 5% to Sir Spencer and 5% to Abel Kirby for this. These, once again, I'm trying to just highlight here how music, it's got this ineffable quality to it. It's something passionate. It's something that people really care about and are willing to spend a lot of time and money and just investment of things into. And I don't have the access to a lot of the complex things, which I could do this in a better way. So when you are listening to just their music, all of the money goes directly to them. So instead, I'm just going to have to do this kind of basic way. And the reason I can do this is, once again, the goodwill. I know Sir Spencer and Abel Kirby. I've talked to them before. I've asked them before to do music, and I have indeed played music on one of my shows. So so I've got some cred. I was talking about this probably, a year ago, I think, in an episode which I titled "Decentralized Music" on the Mere Mortal. So I'll include a link to that somewhere. And just the aspect of, okay, I know these people. I talked to Ainsley as well. I was like, do you mind if I play a song? I won't be able to do it in the complete correct way. And she's just like, yeah, please do. So 5% of this is going to her, to Sir Spencer, and to Abel Kirby for the 15%. Once again, a lot of this relies on kind of the goodwill of thinking that, okay, the pie is going to grow. It's not a zero-sum game. People love these things. The more people know about it, the better it gets. So, until next week, where we'll be talking more about the complexities and maybe some of the problems which will be coming up and some of the solutions to those problems as well. But until then, I really just want to thank you for joining me for another episode of the Value for Value show. And I'm going to let Sir Spencer and Abel Kirby take it away with their band, Abel and the Wolf. And the song is Making Beans.
It means it's hard to pay attention when you're busy making beans. 'Cause upstairs I'm busy making beans, and I'm still preoccupied. Do you know what I mean? And all these people come to see. Let's stir the pot some more. It's a better way to be. Stir it. In a tree, the sky above me is on screen. I need, and all these people sure were nice to me when they dragged me down, tore me up, and ran me out of steam. Now I don't wear no underwear, and no one calls me late. 'Cause upstairs I'm busy making beans, and I'm still preoccupied. Do you know what I mean? And all these people come to